Okay. So handling pressure in competition, mental skills for combat athletes. This is for jiu-jitsu, judo, wrestling. I mean, a majority of you are jiu-jitsu. Is there anyone that is not jiu-jitsu? No one, no one? Okay. Just so I know, so I can keep it to that. But I'm also going to bring up, Muay Thai, striking, wrestling, things like that, so that it all comes together for those who want to see this afterwards. And I'm recording so that you guys will have it and anyone who didn't show up. So anyone in Australia that signed up that is not here. Hans, yeah, what's up?
Hey, my bad. I'm not used to using this app, so I'll just
Okay. Awesome. You just figured things out.
yeah, I'm
Okay.
used to Teams on my laptop, so this is a little different for me.
Got it. Got it.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
Yeah, guys, don't be afraid to just like butt in, to raise your hand, put something in the chat. So we're going to start with kind of understanding what pressure is. If I can get to the next slide, maybe. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to cover what pressure actually is. We're going to cover where pressure comes from, the sources, what pressure does to us, how to handle the pressure, and we're going to put it into practice. Um, what do we think pressure actually is? Before I go to the next slide. Can anyone kind of explain their emotions, their thoughts, their feelings, what they experience when they feel pressure?
A self-imposed story that increases the stakes.
Beautiful, beautiful. I like that. Little Brene Brown, the story we're telling ourselves.
For me, I feel overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mm,
Overwhelm or overstimulation.
yeah.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
Can depend. Sometimes pressure can feel motivating. So sometimes, yes, can feel overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's an internal experience. Can we all agree on that?
Yeah.
Ryan, what were you going to say? I saw you came off mute.
Yeah, I would just say it's sort of expectations, right? Expectations about how I think the future is going to go.
Yes, absolutely. So pressure is your perception of a situation as significant or demanding. The reason I chose to put significant or demanding is that we don't always look at something as demanding, especially if we might be excited about it. There might be emotions that we're not necessarily dealing with yet until we get there. So it's big, but maybe it doesn't feel demanding yet. Or it just feels demanding, but it doesn't feel significant. So there's a lot of ways that we perceive pressure, but it is about the perception of the pressure, right? It's not the stressors themselves. It's not the external or the internal. It's not what comes up. It's not what you think about it necessarily, but your perception. So what you're thinking, feeling, and experiencing. And that perception shapes how you think, how your body is going to respond, and how you perform. So, would you agree that pressure and your perception of it is pretty important? Have you ever had someone go, just don't think about it? You're overthinking. It's not that big of a deal. Don't worry about it. You're just, it's just like training. I can definitely say that training is not competition and competition is not training. Yes, you can minimize stress by giving someone a perception that says it's glorified training. It's something that is something you've done every day. But wouldn't that kind of diminish the experience a little bit? Now, what I would say to someone who is experiencing pressure is really dependent on if they're type A or type B, if they have anxiety, in their life, not just in a performance setting. Sometimes people don't feel the pressure and you have to motivate them and be like, this is why you should care, right? So it really depends on what someone is already feeling about the situation or the competition or the tournament or the event. And then I would say, okay, well, this is how we're going to get you to the right occasion. So what I think is really important is to differentiate between stressors and pressure, right? Pressure is what we are making sense of the stressors, and they are mostly external, which is my opponent. Is my opponent a world champion? Is my opponent the guy that I train with on Sundays? Is this guy, is he really good? Has he beaten me before? Have I beaten him before? Competition setting. Is this an ADCC open where there's music blasting and it's super chill? Or is this an IBJJF where it's a major and the refs are in suits and it feels really important? Or it's like 4 stars versus 2 stars and it's weighted and there's ranking, all that stuff. Then there's the score and the time. Obviously, if the score is you're losing, you're going to feel more pressure because the time is also going to be running out. So we make decisions based on the pressure we feel like, oh, I got time to sweep. Oh, I got time to pass. I have time to do the thing versus I don't have time. Same with the refs. So the refs are obviously there to do their job, but it's not our job to do their job, right? We leave that to them, and they're human, unfortunately. They are subjective, and it's how they interpret the rules, right? So we can't expect that they're going to understand the rules as much as we do, or vice versa. And the same with judges, right? What the judges see, we often hear in MMA, just don't leave it to the judges. And it's like, buddy, I tried. Like, wasn't that the point? I tried to put him away in the third, but that wasn't something that I could do, right? So the judges are just doing their job. The social aspect, which is a big one. Your coaches, are your coaches there being like, hey man, do you want to be included in the comp team? Do you want to have your medal hanging? Or are they like, hey, this is what we do all the time. I'm here to support you, right? There's a difference. Teammates are like, oh man, you're gonna kill it. Or they might be like, oh man, I fought that guy. He's so good, right? Or it could be, well, I want my teammates to make sure that like they look at me as competent and that I'm a good training partner and all these other steps of where we go when we think about what our teammates are thinking about us. The audience. I fought a final in a major at Europeans, and there's a big wall, and it was like the whole crowd is like above you, and it felt like um, Coneheads, where he's like fighting the Garthok, and it's like this whole arena, and you truly feel like the man or the woman in the arena. And you sometimes will go with, do I feel like I belong here? Do these people actually want to watch me? Things like that. Expectations from others, which what I've realized is often, unless they are explicitly stated, we often think that our expectations are the expectations that others are putting on us. But in reality, it's the expectations we think that they're putting on us. And so that's something to consider. And then of course, if you bring your friends and you're like, guys, I'm really good at jujitsu, or like I really want you to come to my championship, and you just get like flying triangled in the first 5 seconds, whatever, and you're like, I swear I'm better than that. Or your significant others, you're like, gee, you spend so much time on this sport. You better be good at it, you know? Internal your goals, right? Like, so if you're just like, I'm just looking to have fun, that's different than I want to be a world champion. Your standards and your standards could be influenced by the social aspect of like, okay, so my team is a takedown team, so I can't pull guard. Or this is something that I'm a perfectionist and things have to go really well, which is not very great for a complex and dynamic sport where you have very little that you can control. Your investment I spent all this money to be here. I traveled. I had to pay for the hotel, the competition, my training, all of that. Maybe I bought some private lessons from my coach, right? What it means to you, your values. Is this something that like goes in line with, okay, perseverance, tenacity, those are my values. I am doing something hard. So this is important to me. maybe not the outcome, but just the performance itself. And obviously, what you feel is at stake. And that is also something that can be construed based on your arousal level, your anxiety level, if you're type A, type B. You could feel in the moment like it's a really big deal. Or you could feel like it's a really big deal when you sign up and then you get there and you're like, there's not even warm-up mats. This isn't even that big of a deal. So you could feel differently at different points from signing up to a tournament, thinking about a tournament, training for a tournament, arriving at the venue, warming up, getting into your gi, all those things. Any questions? Pretty clear, right? Cool. So there are two ways that we can respond to pressure. This is the interesting part because most people think that the way that you respond to pressure is like, oh, well, it's not how you, what the pressure actually is, it's how you respond. But no one really clarifies, well, how are you supposed to respond? Well, there is some research on challenge and threat states. I bring this up a lot. It's actually really complicated. It's a biopsychosocial theory. So there's a lot to go off of. And I didn't want to oversimplify, but I figured it would be important to bring in this theory because if we are in a challenge state, we look at things as though it is, yeah, it's intense. It's a fight, like I don't know what my opponent's gonna do. I'm gonna have to feel some energy and I'm gonna have to sweat and I'm gonna have to try and I don't know what I'm gonna deal with. But I think I have the resources to meet the demands. I think I've got what it takes, right? So you end up with this, I can handle this. It might be hard, it might be long, it might be strenuous, but I got this. Your energy feels usable, right? Because sometimes we have frenetic energy and we're actually just wasting it either on following rabbit holes in our head or fidgeting or worrying about things that we can't control. And we're going to get on that. Focus stays on the task, right? So your focus is actually, what am I doing here? What do I need to do to make this happen? Rather than, what is everyone thinking of me? Do I have food in my teeth? What do I look like? Things like that. You engage and you take action because you're present and you're like, cool, I know what the job is and I'm going to go get that job done. And I'm going to be immersed in the present moment. And you're flexible, psychological flexibility. I know a couple of you have already worked with me, so you know that that's a big thing that I work on. I could have made this whole thing about psychological flexibility, but I chose to make it more concrete. Psychological flexibility is you could kind of make it synonymous with mental toughness even. But being adaptable means I can accept things. I know that I can't control most things, and I could be annoyed, I can be frustrated, but I can recover to reset or bring myself back to the present moment. Or I can take this obstacle and I can go, yeah, that's cool. I really wanted that Toriano pass, but if they bring their leg over, cool, I'll do a thigh drag instead, right? So there's just other ways that we can do things. We are not so stuck in tunnel vision. On the other hand is the threat state. Threat state feels overwhelming. We already mentioned that. Or that like there's so much at stake and you're being exposed, which is interesting because I have clients who like are on a judo Olympic track and they are saying to me, I want to be exposed because when I get to the higher level in the Olympic trials and senior nationals and all these other things, like these smaller tournaments that I'm doing now can expose me. I want that. I want the smoke, right? But if you feel exposed or you feel threatened or you feel like you've been imposter syndrome, right? You feel like, oh no, I said that I was good and then clearly this performance proves that I'm not. This might be too much. So this would mean that you feel as though your resources do not meet the demands, which is really interesting because in that moment, you could feel that. But maybe a week prior, you were like, oh, I know, I got this. I do have the resources. I can see my resources clearly. I can see the demands clearly. And then when you get to the venue and you realize there's no warm-up mat, there's no this, there's no that. Oh man, I can't even use my resources. It could be that your opponent changes when you get there, or they combine divisions and you're like, man, that's all I got. So this is what I have to do. I have to go with the big guys. I have to go with the veterans. I have to go with whatever is available, right? Your energy feels tight or frenetic or chaotic or everywhere, right? You're expending it in ways that don't actually matter. Focus shifts to outcome or self. Is there something in my teeth? Or am I going to lose and make myself look like a incompetent person? Or like if I've said that I'm gonna do this and I didn't accomplish it, right? Outcome is not something we can control, but it still matters. Hesitation or over control, that tunnel vision, right? You get really rigid. You're like, oh man, if I feel like I'm a little bit out of control, then it means I'm going to try to grip even tighter. And that's just not the way to go. You have to let go. And it's harder to adjust or recover because of that. Any questions on this slide? Good? Okay. So I spoke kind of about that Goldilocks approach of too little, too much, just right. So too little pressure. You look like boo. You look tired. You feel tired. You're just not in it. You don't really care. You're bored. We don't know. We don't care. Meh. I don't know. Nonchalant. And then there's the really, I don't care. And then there's my mind has been elsewhere, meaning you're just distracted because you feel that there are more enticing, more pressure moments outside of this experience than what is in front of you. What do you think would lead to too little pressure?
Avoidance.
Okay. Not enough
If,
challenge. What were you going to say, Ryan?
sorry, I was going to say if you don't really care about the outcome.
Yep. It's just not meaningful. If you show up and there's only the guy that you've beat 7 times or just your training partner or whatever it is. It's kind of rare to have too little pressure. It's kind of like, why would you sign up for the tournament or why would you do that event in the first place if you didn't care? So this is more rare. Like you're gonna have the under arousal is gonna be a little bit different than the over.
Karen,
Yeah.
Studi, I think we've talked about it, and for me specifically, I feel like I get under aroused, but
Mhm.
it's not that I'm not feeling the pressure. It just feels like my reaction to the pressure. I know the pressure's there is like someone said, maybe like avoidance, and then I get tired, sleepy. But it's not that the pressure and challenge isn't there. Just my response is underwhelming.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, we will definitely get into that. So obviously, the pressure itself doesn't always mean that you're going to feel a certain way. How you feel is really what determines the pressure. So too much pressure can look like you're really this could be negative self-talk, or it could just be like, you better do this, right? Like your relationship with yourself is almost stressed, right? Like you better get this right. Um, can feel like the weight of the world on your shoulders sometimes. Can feel like, wow, just don't screw it up. The ironic process of, hey, don't think of a pink elephant. Now I'm going to think of a pink elephant. So if I say, don't get taken down, don't let him make grips on you, don't let her blah, 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 right? So when we tell ourselves or someone is saying it to us, don't do that thing, we're just going to think of that thing. So if I say, don't screw it up, probably going to find a way to screw it up. If I say, hey, that guy's really good at triangles, don't get triangled, I will probably make it happen, right? There's a high risk or perceived risk. I could get injured. That's real, very real. I could compromise my ability to work. There's fear of failure, there's fear of embarrassment, fear of vulnerability. So that might also be the reason why the avoidance happens, because there is too much pressure. So you're just like kind of you're minimizing until there's not enough to go off of. And the uncertainty around it is terrifying. Not knowing what's going to happen, which is kind of funny because sports in general are meant to be that way. The result is not scripted. Even if I fought Studi and I was like, hey, we're going to do this, we wouldn't be able to necessarily pull it off. Even if I said, okay, I'm going to go for this, and then you're going to do that, and then you're going to do that. In fact, like there were moments in, like, I think it was ADCC, where they put teammates against teammates, usually in like the first round, so there's no closeouts. And if they feel like it's a fake fight, they will DQ both of them. So there is no such thing as like a scripted. So it is the uncertainty. We need to be excited by the uncertainty. We need to be interested or curious about the outcome and the uncertainty. That's where it lives. Meaning, okay, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to stay optimistic. I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm really excited to see what my opponent gives me. I fought the same person 4 times, and we thought we knew each other's game, and we used to kind of mess with each other all the time. So I really never knew which version of her was going to show up. But when we have the right pressure, right? This is that Goldilocks approach. We want it. We want the smoke, right? Come at me, bro. Challenge accepted. Bring it on. I had to add a cat in there. I love cats. Buckle up. This is going to be good. Bring it, baby. Right? So this is more of excitement, apprehension of like, oh man, I can't wait to see what happens. Not apprehension of, oh no, what if? Right? Any questions on my memes and my GIFs? Did they accurately portray what I wanted them to? I feel like I'm pretty good at that. Let me see, we got something in the chat. If my computer will load, I'll be able to see it. It's thinking really hard. Okay. Excellent aims. Thank you, Studi. I love validation. It's not that important, but I love validation. Okay. So this gets us into the reason you're here, which is how to actually handle pressure. So how are we, like, what are we thinking about when we say handle? We're not controlling pressure. We're not mitigating pressure. We're not avoiding pressure. What are we thinking about when we say handle it? I'm going to handle it. Anybody?
Use it in a positive way.
Yes, that's one way. We're going to use it.
Aaron, yeah. Aaron, sorry, I'm like driving. I apologize for being off camera, but I was curious, like, is some of this about taking what you said the positive pressure mentality was and just choosing to frame your mentality like that? Is it that easy? You're like, I'm just gonna repeat myself these things. Got this, like bring it, come at me, bro. Is that it? And then until you go into, oh my God, this is too much. Whoa, oh my God, no, I have to say that to myself again.
Yes.
Like, is that what it's?
Yes.
You need to train yourself. Like,
yes. So my business is called Train Your Mind for a reason. There is no fix, because when people come to me, they're not broken. There's nothing for me to fix. There's nothing, like, we can change things. But what I want is for someone to be able to access their skill and their training and their abilities on that moment, with that food in their belly, with that amount of sleep, against that opponent, on that day, at that venue, in that country, whatever, right? So it's flexible. Handling means you're going to figure it out. So it requires, you said the word choose. Yes. It's manual. We have to choose. So the front loading, this is what we're doing. That's kind of what the sports psychology is. There is before, there's during, there's after, there's pre-performance routines, there's debriefing and reflecting, there's reframing. There's so many different tools I could have picked to figure this out, right? And it's going to be different for everybody. So I wanted to choose things that made it more psychologically flexible because I don't know what pressure you're going to have. I don't know what's real and what's perceived in the sense of I could actually get injured versus like I can't get injured. There's no way I'm actually wearing full protection. It's like there's, when I did my Muay Thai fight, I was wearing headgear and shin guards and elbow pads and everything else, right? And so there's really about how we're going to figure this out. Well, it's what I focus on. It's knowing and trusting what I have, right? Trusting what you have is like, okay, well, if I don't know, if I'm not taking inventory of what I have, if I'm not building that competence, then I don't know what skills I can believe in. So it's front loading. What am I good at? What are my strengths? What are my assets? How can I use these to the best of my ability? And then in the moment when the pressure happens, that's what you lean on. That's the evidence. That's the proof, right? But we have to build that ahead of time. And then using what you feel is more of like in the moment. And that is the part where it's the fact that you either avoid or you fight it or suppress it or tell yourself, no, I can't feel this. Well, buddy, you are. You are. Emotions last 60 to 90 seconds. And especially if you're going to perpetuate it with thoughts and what ifs and rabbit holes and all that and spirals, then absolutely you're going to reinforce that. So fighting it versus accepting it. Yeah, Jeff.
When it comes to don't fighting it, how would you address the mindset of, facing down a fear or confronting the pressure or having that sort of like conflict language based around working with the pressure?
We're going to get to that step by step, but being able to accept versus fight it, I mean, that's a lifelong endeavor. This is not something that you're just like, I accept, and then you just move on with your life. Like these are not just easy things, but it's a mindset, right? So if we build this mindset and we lean on that, then that's what's going to take us there. And also, so I work from acceptance and commitment therapy. We say training in sports psych so we don't scare people off. But the training itself says, it is what it is, my guy. This is what you're working with. So being able to say, like, cool, got that. And I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. Because what you feel does not predict how you perform. And that's a big one. So getting into it, this goes back to basically what I showed you before with the stressors. So based on these stressors, I like to play a locus of control game where in person, at seminars and workshops, I will have people go to one side of the room if they think it's controllable, the other side of the room if they think it's uncontrollable, and then in the middle if it's like in between, which I've given the word influenceable, which just kind of makes me think of like a Lunchable, but with influence. So not what you can control, not what you can't control, but you can sort of influence what they do or how it's perceived and whatnot. So can we control our opponent? It's a fun one.
We can try.
Yeah. Yes. You're like, isn't that the whole point? To like subdue and dominate my opponent into submission?
Yeah.
Um,
But no, right?
no,
Yeah.
right? Because controlling implies, Simon says, controlling implies like I have my controller and I am able to like, make them spam whatever move it is. Or that I can predict or anticipate what they're going to do. So if we think that we can control our opponent or that we should or we're supposed to, then we're not actually being realistic and we start having expectations that are never going to be met. That's the issue. The competition setting, can you control what mat you're on? Ooh. Can you control the time you go? Can you control what venue they choose to have the event at? Probably not. Probably not. So it is what it is. We don't know if there's going to be warm-up mats or not. We'll make do. Score and time. Can you control the score or the time? Can you influence it? You can influence it. There used to be actually a rule in IBJJF, or no, sorry, there is a rule because people used to take advantage of the time to tie your belt. People used to use it as the time to like walk around and breathe and make sense of things and hear your coach and reset. So they put, I think it was like a 15-second or 30-second, and so they watch their watches now. Because people were using that time to influence the amount of time they had to think in between for resets. Referees, can you control the referee?
No.
Can you influence the referee?
Yeah, I could see that.
Does it?
Often in a negative way.
Yeah, yeah, right? You talk to them and they're like, no. So referees, I actually, you can influence them, obviously. You can do your sweep and maintain the sweep and then look at them until they give it to you. But they might not. They might not give it to you. We don't know why. We never will. But they might not give it to you. So you're wasting your time and energy trying to do someone else's job for them. So that's why we say, no, can't control it. I'm going to focus on doing what I can and making it, maybe I'm going to try to hold for 3 seconds to really maintain. I'm going to do everything in my best interest and in my control. And hopefully the referee or the judges perceive it that way and are able to do their job, right? But I can't do their job for them. And trying to is really frustrating and really distracting. Can you control your coaches, teammates, the audience, expectations from others, your friends, or significant others? No, and if you do, that's abuse. Internally, can you control your focus? Sometimes I have ADHD. I don't know. Sometimes if I have my coffee, maybe. Can you control your self-talk?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it takes work. Definitely takes work. Your emotions. This is a fun one.
I mean, control is an interesting word there, but like
Right?
you can acknowledge them and other things.
Yes, right? You could sit with it.
Yeah.
But the emotions are related to the perception and the story that you're telling yourself,
Mm.
right? So if we can manage our self-talk, we can usually manage our emotions in the process, because they're so related. But we could also minimize how much our emotions affect us if we focus on what it means to us and if it's actually in line with our values. Having values is great. When big companies put out their mission statements and what they value, and then they do nothing about it. And they're like, but no, we have this web page that says what our values are, but they don't commit to those, right? There's no integrity. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to have integrity. We're trying to make sure that what we value, we're actually employing. Not because we want people to see that we are what we say we are, but to ourselves, that relationship with yourself to say, no, like I said that I wanted to do hard things. Here I am doing hard things, right? What you feel is at stake. Can you control that? Pretty much, right? Kind of goes in line with the self-talk and the emotion. So if we can manage or handle our focus, if we can handle our self-talk, if we can handle our emotions, then we can most likely handle what it means to us and what we feel is at stake. So, trust what you have. Does everyone understand the focus aspect before I go on? This is a big one. Like this is kind of the foundation. Because where your attention goes is everything. And I think it's also beneficial to mention that your focus can be internal or external. What is an example of in a competition setting during a match? What is something on the external that you have to pay attention to that would be beneficial in making good decisions?
The score.
Yep. Right? Am I going to stall here? Or am I, am I going to have to go? Am I going to get called for a Shido or am I going to, am I going to be able to get this throw? Um, the time, obviously, we make certain decisions based on the time, especially ADCC. First half, no points. Second half, points. Some people will be in a really good position and they know they can pass, but they're about maybe 30 seconds from points. So they decide to maintain until they can actually get the points. So that's just strategy. Um, yeah, so we are focusing on what we can control, but not in the sense of making decisions based on whether we can control it. We are making decisions based on we can't control it. This is what it is. I need to make decisions based on this and I accept. Right? The internal. The internal could be my base. The internal could be me sensing something, which is a lot of jujitsu, right? Striking's a little bit different. There's a lot of visual that you have to do to follow, right? We're monitoring a lot of things. Like some coaches will tell you look at their chest, some will say look at the eyes, some say we'll like be scanning. But generally we want to focus on okay, am I leaning? Not because I'm looking at a mirror, looking at myself lean, or someone told me I'm leaning, but can I feel myself leaning? Can I check in with myself? Too much internal during a competition, not good. But fully external, not always great either, because then you're not paying attention to what you sense. If I'm in top half guard, like everybody's had this, if you're a white belt, you have no idea what's going on back there. Your coach is like, just step over. The guard is open. Literally, just step over. They're not even doing anything. Just step over and the mount and whatever. But you're like, oh, but I'm so concerned with keeping their shoulders on the mat, or I'm so concerned with shoulder pressure. I'm so concerned with, what's happening in front of me up here that you forget to feel what's happening there. That comes with time, obviously. So building your competence. This is always really interesting because I will have clients who are like, I just suck. Like it's almost like they're giving it to me. Like all of a sudden, okay, great. You gave me a triangle, or okay, yeah, I swept you, but you kind of just sat. They don't even notice the competence in front of them. So what is competence? Anybody? How does it differ from confidence?
Well, competence is your ability to use or recall information.
Okay. And what is confidence?
Belief in self-efficacy.
Right. So you're kind of labeling both of them. Competence is self-efficacy. Confidence is more overarching. Confidence is I'm acting as though, right? Confidence is, yeah, whatever happens, I'll figure it out. It's your ability to believe that when you do get to that point, that you'll have the tools. Whereas competence is more, it's more general than self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is very particular and specific. If I say, let's go for a hike, you'd be like, yeah, I'm pretty good at hikes. That's competence. I'm pretty competent. I know I mean, my Vans will probably suffice. If it depends on, like how hilly it is. If it's Runyon and it's just a bunch of influencers going up to take pictures of the Hollywood sign, it's really not that bad of a hike. Anybody can do it. Um, but if I said, let's go hike Mount Everest, you'd be like, whoa, buddy, people die there. People need extreme training for that. And so that's the aspect where we go self-efficacy. Can I complete this task? Can I fold my laundry the same day that I do it? Probably not. That is a worthy challenge because it just keeps happening. Um, and so when you say self-efficacy, this is where we're working on, okay, what can I what can I actually do? How do I know if I'm good? Well, mastery experience, or just like I've been here before. Sometimes that's competence. I've been here before. I've done this before, right? Might be something that you've executed, right? Doesn't matter what setting it was, but you've done it. You've done it. You've been here, right? It's not the first time you've been put in 50-50. It's not the first time that you've had to recover from a fast pass, like an outside pass, right? Certain things like that. It's also kind of what people tell you. So if you have worthy people, you trust your coach, you trust your training partners, you trust the people who have knowledge, and they say, you know what? You're really good at that. Yeah, like did you notice that like your grips are really strong? Like, did you notice that like you always go for knee slice on that side? It's really effective. So we can take some sort of verbal persuasion, as they call it, and then we can take that in. But we generally want it to be, how do I know I'm good? Well, I've either done it before, or I've practiced it, or I've seen it, right? And I'm willing to try it. So the way that we build this is over time. With kids, I'll actually do a competence jar, well, where I'll have them, they can make it whatever it is. They can make it what they could have, like an old ketchup bottle. I don't care what they put it in. They just have some sort of vessel that they will physically write on pieces of paper. Okay, did this, did this, did this. That way, when they are questioning themselves, when they are wondering, what am I doing that is actually bringing me to where I want to be, they go back to that jar and they go, oh yeah, I remember that day when I thought that I couldn't do it and I did, you know. When I handled that challenge, when the first time that I completed a pull-up, like you remember those things, but we forget them, right? So it's just remembering. So what I tell people, especially people who can't find competence, who don't believe their own competence, who have trouble with bringing their competence into the actual day, that's why I tell you, get in the habit of writing down 3 things you did well, but within your control. Within your control. Obviously, if you hit that sweep, you might minimize it. How do we minimize our accomplishments in jujitsu?
They're letting me work.
You gave it to me. He was tired, right? I always think about how, the hierarchy of jujitsu, and this is something that people resonate with a lot, is you're standing in line. Some gyms don't do that, some do. Standing in line, belt order, and you're a purple belt, and you're looking down the line, and you're like, all right, so I have to beat those guys. I should beat those guys. That white belt, like if he gets me, it means that that's a personal failing. I have failed. That is a mistake. I made a mistake, not that they capitalized or they wrestled in high school or they used to do sambo or whatever it is that we don't know, but they're wearing a white belt around their waist. Therefore, they should know nothing. And I'm wearing a purple belt and I should know something. Therefore, if I win, cool. Yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do. Not, oh, hell yeah, I did that. If I lose, oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. I shouldn't have done that. This shouldn't have happened. Now we look to the left and we go brown and black belts. Well, if I hit something on them, oh man, they gave it to me. They weren't trying. It was their own mercy that gave it to me. It was a fluke, right? Um, and then if we lose to them, we're like, yeah, it checks out. Yeah, yeah, I'm not going to question it because that's what should happen. There was a time that a coach of mine, he noticed that when I was the purple belt and I was going with a black belt, and she was really aggressive, but he knew that I could handle it, but I was respecting her belt too much. So he made everybody switch belts, and I had to wear her black belt. And I was like, this feels sacrilegious, but I'll do it because you told me it's okay, and just in this setting. But trading out the belts, you realize if I asked you, okay, could you list all the things that makes a good purple belt? An excellent purple belt, a mediocre purple belt? There is no standard. There is no list of moves that you need to know, things that you can do. Like there is testing in some gyms, but it's so subjective. Depends on who you're training under and their lineage and their standards and everything else. So it's really, really hard to say I'm competent or I'm not competent. It's more like, have I done it? Can I see myself doing it? So that's why when we write the three things down, obviously you can do it in a physical notebook, but you can do it in your phone, you can do it in an app, like you can just keep track however you feel. And so the examples for that are I hit that sweep, so I executed something, right? I stayed calm in a bad position. If like I didn't bring this in, but pressure, like I really wanted to put like that, like a picture of a big dude inside control and a little dude, like that's pressure. That's real pressure, right? 100 kilos, like 100 kilos, what they call it in Portuguese. So like if you're able to manage that pressure and be like, you know what, I can still breathe. I found a breath. All right, we're good. So stayed calm in a bad position. That's sweet. That's definitely a win. And then you kept moving. So something you stayed with. I had an intention to be on top. I had an intention to pass. I had an intention to play footlocks. I had an intention to do this, and I actually followed through. And isn't that going back to that self relationship, that integrity? Whenever you do something that you said you wanted to do, you reinstate this courage and this competence and confidence that when I set out to do something, I try. Maybe I don't get it, but I try. And that's the point. Any questions on how to build your competence?
Consistency, it's important, right?
Absolutely. Yep. You can't just do this 1 week
Yeah.
and then forget about it. So consistency is the easiest and hardest thing to do. Just go to class 3 days a week for the rest of your life. Maybe you'll get a black belt, right? Um, just 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 do that. It's like cool, but I have to do it like in a row and I have to make it a habit. So I don't really use the word habit. Um, Habit implies autopilot. Habit implies not using your working memory or your executive functioning in your frontal lobe. That, oh, if I do it a couple times, like, yeah, my body will know what to do, right? No, your mind is still involved and your mind is going to find a way to get around it usually. Your mind gets really creative when you're feeling the pressure and your arousal is high. So that's why if we do this enough and we have the proof, then when we're in that moment of pressure, we can be like, but wait, I did this, I've done that. It's kind of like, remember who you are. You're that guy. You're her. You're him, right? Why? Because of this, right? Sometimes we need other people to say it to us, but that's unreliable and unsustainable because we're not always going to have someone who is capable of doing that for us, or they might not just be physically present, right? I've done that too. I've hit up people and been like, can you just send me a voice message that I'm going to be a world champion? And like it's cool. It's awesome to have like a actual black belt world champion tell you like you've got this, and it's just like it doesn't mean anything until you've confirmed it yourself and that you actually believe it. If you internalize it, that's the difference. So in order to internalize it, we have to be able to recognize it. We have to be able to catch it and put it in our pocket for later. Which brings us to examples. So, when we're in those moments, we have to point to something in that list of competence to help us, to help persuade us in that moment. So I'm about to gas out, or I don't have it in the tank, or I'm so tired, or my lungs are burning, or I can't believe there's 6 minutes left in this 10-minute match. Like, adult black belt is gnarly. 10-minute matches are so gnarly, right? And I think that's why we don't have a lot of like spectator friendly matches a lot of the time, because people are like, I'd probably gas out if I kept this pace up the entire time. But what do we use? Well, I've pushed through hard rounds before. I might remember a specific day, a specific training. Now, some people have used this to posit that training while tired is a good thing. that your real training only starts when you're fatigued, because now you know what to do when you're really, not having all your faculties. And it's like, yes, but periodization matters. We're not going to always have that tough training. We might have that tough training once or twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, but we are understanding that, okay, I put this in my bank. I put this in my pocket. I've done this before. I've been here before. I'm stuck in this position. I've gotten out of worse spots. They're better than me. One way that I also like to kind of reframe this also, and not necessarily reframe because we're not replacing, we're just adding, and we'll get to that. But they're better than me. Like that could be true, meaning they've proven it. They've won titles. They have beaten me before, whatever it is. But at that moment, when you're standing mat side about to go, it's about belief. So there is a little bit of just a Lulu optimism as well. So if you look at like, well, what tells me that I have a chance here? One, every match is a fresh start. They don't get to start with a grip or a good position just because they've won a tournament before. Everything is you're standing in front of me, I'm standing here, we shake hands, combats, we start, we fight, whatever. It goes. Right? Like it's anyone's game. I can't finish this, oh, I've hit this before, right? I'm losing this exchange. I know how to recover here. Does it make sense how we can bring the competence that we're building into that present moment with that present obstacle or present pressure that we're feeling? That's the front loading that's now benefiting us in the moment. But we have to like remember to do it. We have to actually remind ourselves, right? So there's that consistency again. But when you start to train your mind to do these things, it becomes more automatic. So something that if you're my client, you've probably seen this video or a similar one, using what you feel. Well, we can't use what we feel unless we know what we feel. How many of you, when you're at a tournament and you're feeling pressure when you're competing, how many of you get like hyper vigilant where you start noticing everything? Yeah. Does that ever like happen? Like where you're like, oh my God, there's this, there's that, there's this, there's that, you're everywhere, right? Or sometimes that high arousal or that pressure leads us to be more zoomed in instead of zoomed out, right? So we might actually only be fixating on one thing. And that might be a thought, it might be something we see, it might be an issue we've seen or posed. You just can't get over it, right? So what I like to tell people, I usually use this within the pre-performance routine of getting acclimated to the space that you're in and getting present minded. This is a clip from the Christopher Robin movie. I have like no idea if you guys are going to be able to hear it, so you'll have to tell me.
I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm going to go back.
When you share the video, there's a little button that says share audio.
Oh, yay. Okay.
So you could when you share it. Yeah.
Okay. Let me see real fast. Is that part of Zoom or part of?
Well, it's part of Zoom, but if this is embedded in your presentation, I don't know if you'd have to like unshare and then share and then press share audio. It's a little click button when you share your screen. So I just don't know.
Okay. I'll have to figure it out another time. But basically,
All right.
I'll explain it. So Pooh is sitting on this train with Christopher Robin, who is now an adult, and yeah, he's got work to do. They're on a train. He's like, man, you've taken up most of my day. So he says, can you entertain yourself? So Pooh looks out the window and he's like, grass, person, dog, house. And he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I'm playing this say what you see game. And he goes, well, could you say what you see a little quieter? So then he goes back and he's like, dog, he just starts whispering it. What that is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the ability to see, observe, witness something without judgment. Do you guys understand metacognition? When you're thinking about a thinking, it's layered, right? So if I'm thinking about something and then now I'm trailing off on different layers of what that could be. So if I see a dog, I might think, oh, it's a yellow lab. Like, I grew up with a yellow lab named Buddy. Oh man, that was such a great time. And now you're trailing off. Or it could be, oh my gosh, there's my opponent. And now I'm looking at my opponent and, oh, she seems really serious or he seems really strong, right? And we start fixating and we start kind of spiraling or following that thought process. So what this allows us to do is to hear, see, smell, to notice what is happening. Now, this is a little bit different because using what you feel is internal, right? We talked about external and internal. So internal, I might be taking inventory. So taking inventory, I call it keys, wallet, phone, because if I didn't have a purse, you'd just be doing like that, the guy's like pat down. And so do I have everything I need? How's my breathing? What do I need in this moment? What are my thoughts like? What is my mood? What is happening internally? What is happening in my body? That is really relevant for different moments of the competition process to kind of take a moment to be like, all right, let me take inventory. Let me check in with myself. But for the most part, the things that come up are the things that are just seeming relevant in that moment, right? So that's where we have that spontaneous self-talk. And that spontaneous self-talk is usually a thought, a sensation, or an emotion. So I might feel my hands are getting sweaty. I might feel like my heart is going a mile a minute. I might feel that, oh no, like my first opponent didn't show up, or man, where is my opponent? Right? The emotion could be like I'm feeling nervous, I'm feeling inadequate, I'm feeling pumped, I'm feeling hyped, I'm feeling hostile, I'm feeling aggressive. Um, there are many different activities that we could do to define those emotions and what thoughts are appropriate and tracking your thoughts to go, what are the spontaneous thoughts that come up and how can I use them? Are they beneficial? Traditional CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, that is something that I feel is a little outdated just because it's very much replacing. It's very much like, oh, that's not true. This is, or, but look, the sunshine. Obviously that's like overdoing it, but we tend to almost gaslight ourselves if we say what I'm noticing or what I'm feeling or what I'm thinking, or what I'm emoting is wrong. And I need to replace it with something better. I also don't tend to lean into negative versus positive because those are also very subjective. I like productive or unproductive because there's certain things that you are told might be productive in that moment, but not in another moment, right? Your emotions. I might feel peaceful or satisfied. That's great when I'm sitting at home watching TV, but not when I'm in the bullpen. And instead of thinking about, making strong grips or thinking about my first exchange or how I'm going to keep my nerves in check, I'm thinking about the pizza I'm getting later or what that hot guy was doing, last night or why he isn't texting me. Like those are not serving me in that moment, right? So there's a time and a place. So paying attention to both the internal and external is grounding yourself in the present moment, which is essential. But also in that moment, we're just taking in, okay, what's happening? Now, something that acceptance and commitment therapy takes in terms of building that psychological flexibility is the I'm noticing. So if you have a tight chest and you use the words I'm noticing, there adds distance. It creates, I am the observer, I am the witness. I'm just the person that's seeing these things. Oh, I'm noticing my hands are sweaty. Not, oh my God, my hands are sweaty. Now I don't know if I'm going to be able to make grips. I don't know if my grips are going to be strong anymore. My grips are so important. It's I'm noticing, huh, interesting, cool. So noticing is a skill. Noticing is relative to the present moment, which is where we need to be when we're fighting in a combat sport where it's complex and there's no closed skill. It's not like I'm, I've all the time in the world to do a free throw. I'm in it. It started. I don't get to be like, hey, time out. I have to keep going. So I'm noticing is a really, really good tool for that. Accepting, which is really kind of hard to do. So I don't know if you guys know in improv comedy, um, the show must go on. So they use a yes and. If I had something in my head that I wanted you to go with, or I started to head in a direction where I wanted to make a soup and I'm handling an onion. And then I go, okay, can you hand me the next ingredient? And you hand me an apple. And I stop and go, that doesn't belong in a soup. That completely takes us out of the skit, of the scene, and I ruin the move. I ruin the whole moment, basically. So because we have to stay in it, we go, yes, and. Yes, I have a tight chest. Yes, my hands are sweaty. And the reason why I use and is because it takes that both and approach of that duality instead of saying but. It's not wiping away the first thing we said. We're not invalidating our own feelings. We're not denying ourselves what we feel. We are just saying, I'm noticing my hands are sweaty and I'm going to go fight a match. And I have strong grips. Two things can be true at the same time. So the acceptance is allowing the thought as is. That's what we mean by don't fight it. Don't say, oh no, this is not right. I must change it. This is not acceptable. This is not productive. It's just like, cool, that's what we're working with. Good to know. That's it. It simplifies it in a way where hopefully we can just move on to what needs to be done in that moment. Because again, we can't look at the ref and go, hey, timeout. That just doesn't work. So I'm nervous and my next match is the champ. And I'm so happy I have a worthy opponent, right? There's like different ways to look at it. It's not lying to myself. I'm not minimizing. I am accepting. Yep, this is what it is. So we're going to add, we're not replacing. Does that make sense for the yes and? Okay. And then the final part, we still have to act because we're in a match. We're in a fight, right? So we can't just go, that's cool, right? We got to go, okay, I got my guard passed and I can recover from here. And then you pick a task, elbow to knee, turn away, turn in, right? We're not going to say, don't let him do this. Don't let him do that. We're going to say, I'm going to do this. If I don't want him to pin me, then I'm going to maintain my shoulders off the mat. Or I'm going to turn into him, or I'm going to fight for the underhook. I'm going to give myself a task. I'm going to give myself a job. When we stay on the task, we no longer worry about the outcome. A lot of times people will coach and motivate and go, you sweep, you win. That might just build the pressure. That might just say, oh my gosh, I only have this much time and I have to sweep. Like that's the only thing I can do. But suddenly, I don't remember how to sweep. Suddenly, I forgot what my favorite guard is. Suddenly, I'm looking at, wow, this man's passing is great. This pressure that he's putting on me is gnarly, right? But what are we going to do about it? So when we are able to notice what's happening, this could be before a match, after a match, during a match. noticing I got my guard pass. You wouldn't actually take the time to be like, I am noticing I got my guard pass. I am noticing that I did not get my 3 points, right? So we are going to just take what's there, accept, not fight it, and then we're going to stay on task and do the next thing. A lot of sports psychology is, control the controllables, next exchange, next play, next period, right? Those are all aspects of generic sports psychology, but we don't really talk about like what that looks like or how to employ it in the moment. And so sometimes you'll have a coach that's like, just keep moving. And that's very true, right? Even in boxing, I had a boxing coach that would say, do something even if it's wrong, because we can't overthink it. You just got to send something out there. You have to keep moving, angling, right? We have to keep our frames. We have to keep fighting for underhooks and pulling and pushing things and making our opponent think while we have time to think, right? So pick a task, say it, and move. You don't necessarily need to say it if you're in the middle of a high intensity round, training or competition. But sometimes we do have that, like where we're just sitting there like, I'm in reverse de la Hiva and I'm like, la-di-da-di-da, he's not going to pass. And then I'm like, oh, I actually have to do something. Let's push pull. Let's try to angle. Let's try to get de la Hiva on the other side. Let's try to make something happen. So we bring it back to behavior, because all of this theory is great until you realize, like, what can I do about it? AJ, thank you. So all in all, for the use what you feel, notice, accept, and act, because what you feel does not predict how you will perform. So that is the kind of separation that we are making. We are taking something at face value and going, cool, that's just data. That's more objective. Cool. And I still need to keep moving. So it's not to say that what you feel doesn't matter. It's not to say that what you feel doesn't have a, I get not prediction, but it weighs on how you will perform. Absolutely. But it doesn't have to. So what we're doing is we're creating space for you to be able to handle it and figure it out in a way that you can still choose, right? We can still choose how we show up. We can still choose what we think. We can still choose how we feel and what we focus on, who we talk to, who we want around us. That's kind of what like a pre-performance routine does, is that front loading of like, what do I need in these moments? What do I need when I get to the venue? What do I need when I'm mat side? What do I need when I'm sitting in the bullpen? What do I need when I'm, warming up on the side, waiting for my name to be called? What do you need in those moments? Well, that's one thing, but then you're there and you're coming up with all these thoughts and feelings that you didn't anticipate. That's okay too. That's cool. That's all right. And I'm going to do it anyways. So the goal is to see pressure as a challenge instead of a threat. Focus on what matters. What can I actually control right now? It's not forget what you can't control. I can't forget about the score and the time just because I can't control it. But it's going to influence how I act. So I need to be aware. And that's what matters. The score and the time does matter. So that's why it's not necessarily what can I control that I care about. It's focused on what matters is, wait, what's my intention? It's not just to win. Winning is just like a byproduct. Oh, my goal, my intention is to stay present. My intention is to give them hell. My intention is to go all out and make sure that after every match, I am finding it hard to breathe. It's funny when you have someone that's like dying after a match, they almost see it as a sign of shame, or like whether they won or they lost, the outcome doesn't really matter. But we beforehand, we're like, yeah, I just want to give it my all. I work with some cross country And that's kind of like distance. They want to be able to say they gave it their all. So if they're crawling at the finish line, doesn't that mean that they gave it their all? Isn't that fulfilling their intention? And so when we look at it like, oh, I should have been more strong, I should have had better cardio, I should have had this, I should have had that. And it's like, no, you did what you said you were going to do. You gave it your all. What else is there? You know? So if you expend yourself, and that was the point, then that's what you can control. Trusting what you have is, well, first of all, what do I have? Sometimes it benefits you to take inventory. I love the ecological dynamics approach. I really do, but I also understand the the necessity of a mind map, of a bigger picture, of nomenclature, of knowing what it is that we're doing, the bigger picture of like, okay, so I'm trying to pass guard, or I'm trying to sweep, or I'm trying to secure this, and why. So it's not just we're going to play games. The games are to make sense of the map that you have and the overall overarching goals. So taking an inventory of what you have in terms of what is my bottom side control? What is my top side control? What do I have from defending turtle? What do I have for when someone turtles? Are you the kind of guy that's going to go for a clock choke? Are you the girl who likes to just kind of hang out until they decide what they're going to do? Right? Like, what do you want to do is really important, but also what can you do? And you don't have time to be like, what did we do that last Thursday? Right? It's not, it's about the present moment. And obviously, people are going to talk about muscle memory and all those things. Muscles don't have memory, but understanding the feel and the framework of what you're working on. And then using what you feel is noticing, accepting it, and acting on it. And that's it. What's the next place I can go? What's the next stop? What's the next move? What's the next exchange? Should I break a grip? Should I make a grip? Should I turn this way? Should I turn that way? Like, there's so many decisions that we have to make. So let's simplify it, right? And let's not fight what we're feeling. We're not shaming ourselves. One of my favorite quotes from Brene Brown is, what we don't need in the midst of struggle is shame for being human. And I think that jujitsu or combat sports in general is synonymous with struggle. And I think it's also important to remember that we are choosing this struggle. We don't get to choose our hard. We don't get to choose our tragedies, our traumas, or anything like that. But we do get to choose to engage in this crazy type of sport, which is like either punching or choking or other things, simulated murder. So pressure isn't the problem. It just means it matters. There's something at stake and it's uncertain. That's how we can define pressure. We don't let it define us. We define it. So is it important? That's a question that we're always going to ask. Is something at stake? Are there demands? Do I have the resources to meet the demands? And can I sit with uncertainty? Can I sit with that? Can I be okay with not knowing how something is going to go? Do I need to have a scripted thing? Do I need to be able to analyze everything before I go? Do I have the parking situation figured out before I get there and get really frustrated and want to ditch my car in the middle of the street? Right? So we have to be okay with not knowing all the answers until we get there. And thanks for coming to my TED Talk. So this is something that I think is so important, is being able to share not just the science and the research, but kind of my also lived experience. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't have, is they weren't the man in the arena, so to speak. They don't know what it actually feels like to get punched in the face. I did an MMA fight. I did a Muay Thai fight. Honestly, the only reason I did the Muay Thai fight was because I wanted to work with all types of people and combat sports athletes. I wanted to know what it was like to get clinched up and, kneed in the stomach, and to be able to know what that feels like, because theory and practice are so different. And there's not a lot of research on combat sports and using mental skills. So even if there might be like, hey, mental skills works for wrestlers because we worked on this particular very specific thing with this group of white males. And it must apply to everyone else, right? So a lot of this is creativity that I'm working under. So everything that I've showed you is the research, but it's also bringing it into, okay, but like, what does that actually look like? And I can definitely say that this has helped a lot of people because I know I've gotten feedback. Um, but also like it takes time and consistency to be able to practice these things. So don't expect it to be like, oh, well, I did what she said. So automatically I should be feeling amazing. No, you feel what you feel and you do it anyways. I had a coach that one time told me, do first, feel later. And I'm like, my guy, I have ADHD, I have rejection sensitivity, like I've got like I am a glass case of emotions, like as a person. If I don't say what I'm feeling, my face will show it, my body language will show it. I feel what I feel. So really it's feel what you feel and do it anyway. Do it scared, do it excitedly, do it nervously. Like just do it, like Shia LaBeouf. That's basically what I wanted to kind of teach you guys. So I'm open for questions. If you guys want me to go back to any of the other slides, I can do that. What are we feeling?
So I haven't done, my goal is to do I'm a white belt, so I'm gonna compete next year. Um, my thing I run into in my past, doing athletic stuff like basketball, track, flag football. When I'm in practice, I'm perfectly fine. I mean, I'm like in basketball, I'm like doing baskets left and right, right? But when I compete, I'm totally opposite, and I do very poorly. And I don't know what that is. That happens and every time I have to perform and in front of people. And is that more of the external or internal?
It's, I would say it's definitely internal. Like everything is kind of like the perception of things. So it would be beneficial for you to look into, well, what is really at stake here? What are my actual fears? Am I focusing on what I can control, or am I trying to control things that I can't, which is very frustrating and scary to assume that you can control things you can't. Um, there's a lot, the thing that's different about combat sports is it's so involving.
Mhm.
You can remember what you're gonna do, and then the ref says "Kumbach," and it's like that Men in Black guy that's like taking away all of your memory. Um, you can freeze, you can sort of just go into like just reaction, defense mode. What happens is if you're not in the present moment, if you're not aware of what you're good at and relying on that and visualizing that and reinforcing that, then you're going to get stuck into thinking about what your opponent is doing. You're going to think about things that you can't control, like what is my teammate thinking right now, or why is my coach so quiet, or is everyone going to still want to train with me, if I fail or I embarrass myself, or wow, I have this patch on the back of my gi, and I'm representing someone else and I don't want to make them look bad. There are so many individual thoughts that come in, and also it's an interesting sport because you train together but you fight alone.
Yeah.
So you may not always have the right experiences. You may be training with men and competing against women is just different. Um, I think it's harder, to be honest, when I go with women versus men. It's like there's something of like your ancestors are coming through, and they're like, you're like, my great grandparent grandma, burned at the stake, and this is for her. It's like, where is this coming from? My God. Um, so this could be an emotional regulation aspect. This could be just a arousal management. So it could be somatic. There's
Yeah.
mind to muscle, muscle to mind, breathing. There's a lot of individual things that we can do. I mean, if you want to schedule a call with me, and we can always talk about that and I can
Yep.
create an individual plan for you. Absolutely. And white belt's a good time to do it because it's the foundation and you get to mess up and not feel bad about it.
Yeah.
I miss being a white belt. I've been a black belt since 2017. If I visit a gym and I'm working on a move I've actually never done before, I have this expectation of like people looking at me like, oh, she knows jujitsu, therefore she should know this. And it's like, no, I don't. It's like there's a million things you can learn in jujitsu and whatnot. So, white
Okay.
belt mentality is a thing. So let's just be grateful that you don't have those outside expectations and you can do whatever you want. But yeah, we can definitely talk about that.
Okay. Thanks, Aaron.
Uh-huh. Any other questions before I let you guys go?
Yeah, I really liked what you presented in terms of like long-term practice, developing understanding of competence versus confidence. What would you suggest in, the short term, like leading up to a competition, say like pans in the next few days?
Nice. Are you competing at Pans in the next few days or is
Yeah,
it a friend? Okay.
yeah.
Um, Amazing. First of all, awesome. Is this your first time doing it?
First time doing pans. This will be, I think, my fourth IBJJF. I did Masters Worlds, and I've done a couple around the Midwest. So,
Okay. So if you've done Master Worlds, you're used to chaos and
oh yeah.
it's intense, like, 70
Well, I
different
wouldn't
mats.
say I'm used to it. I'm saying I've seen it.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you're not necessarily acclimated to it. So I
right.
would do the say what you see game when you get to
Okay.
the venue. Getting the external down, kind of okay, there's the bathroom, there's the bullpen, there's this, there's that. Getting acclimated. Set your own intention that is within your control, which is either like I want to do it this way, or I want to focus on this, or I want to tell myself this. Have some strategic self-talk that you know is going to be helpful for you
Right.
in that moment because you have the experience to know, oh man, when I get in the bullpen, I feel like I'm going to shit my pants. Things like that. Remember that you have lots of autonomy. You get to choose where you want to stand in the bullpen. You get to choose when you want to put your gi on. You get to choose where you look, who you talk to. Go in your bubble. In fact, one of the tips I like to give is if you look like Ryan, he's wearing the big headphones. I like wearing over the ear headphones so that if I can go in my bubble and people try to talk to me and I'm just like, talk to you later about it, so that I can stay on task. And then give yourself some tasks to do so that you're not so worried about, oh, is my name being called? Or should I be doing this warm up? Should I be like try to front load those decisions so that you make minimal decisions prior to, so that when you're there, you just kind of go into like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, cool. And that way you leave the decision making for that attentional capacity, you leave it for the match itself. I would also make sure that you get in your stance mat side. And what this does is it allows you to choose when you start and give yourself perceived control and perceived agency and autonomy rather than waiting for the ref to call you onto the mat because then you're like, oh no, it's happening, it's happening. There's no point of point of no return. I got to do the thing. You get to go in there being like, all right, cool, I'm here. Just tell me when to go. Tell me when to go. Go in, shake the ref's hand, shake your opponent's hand, and as soon as it's combats, you go. Like I know Sarah Galval, I think she does it after they've already shaken hands. She'll put her hand out for like a fist bump. And I'm like, no, we did that already. We did the niceties. Now I'm on. And I think especially at master's level, people like to do that. And showing respect, I get that. But when it starts, it starts. You get to fight someone without getting arrested. It's pretty cool. It's one way to look at it as well. There's a lot. there's a lot,
Yeah.
but that's kind of like what I've been able to do kind of if it's last minute for sure, those
Yeah.
types of additions. Yeah.
And one more question, if it's
Uh-huh.
all right, too. I think a lot of people, when they go through competition, myself included, we have a vision of how we want to show up for the competition or a vision of how we feel like when we're performing well in the gym. And then when we get to the competition, it feels like that vision has been obscured by a lot of the chaos factors that we've addressed and chatted about. Do you have any tools or anything that you suggest to, bridge the gap between that moment and that vision?
Yeah. I like to usually in the bullpen, but it could be when you're waiting before you warm up or before you've even changed into your gi. but I like to think like you have your gi on because then you can sort of like grip and make it real. But um, visualizing realistic but successful moments, 5 to 10 seconds, little
Yeah.
clips in your head. It usually probably POV, not like looking at yourself on a video, third person, but POV imagining something that maybe the first exchange, maybe a path that you're initiating, things that you are initiating. However, the person defends well. And maybe you have to try three different things, or you have to break a grip to make a grip. So, realistic is giving your opponent like worthy enough skills to be able to give you something so that you can problem solve in that moment and give yourself that confidence and remind yourself of competence that, okay, I know what I'm doing, and it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be beautiful as imagined. In fact, most of the time it's really ugly. It's just like, just get up. I go up, you go down, right? That's literally it. I grab a grip, pull you down. Cool. I build head height. I got the sweep. I maintained it. Cool. It's not like I do this and then I do this and then I do this and then they get swept off their feet. That is not really ideal. It's literally just like I push you this way and you don't go, so I push you that way, you know. That's what true self-talk sounds like. It's like I got arm, arm, arm. Okay, got arm. Okay, you know, little cues and stuff. So, that's what I would recommend.
Awesome. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Any other questions?
I have one.
Yep.
So this is the first time I've listened to anything like this. I'm a little older than you guys. I'm 54, so
Amazing.
in my in my time.
I'm 53. I'm with you.
There you go.
Okay.
Amazing.
So when I compete, I am completely negative with myself, like no self-esteem, like no confidence, but I win. And then my coach will be, well, now do you have confidence? And I'm like, well, no, because if we had another match, it'll be totally different. But then I win again, and then so I've won, but then I can't come to terms with, like, because I'm like, what is wrong? Like the minute I see my opponent, I'm like, oh my God, she's gonna kill me. That's my first thought. I put my opponents on a pedestal, and I just have all these reasons of why I'm gonna lose.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, but then I win. Like I don't
Yeah.
understand, but it's super hard on me,
So,
like
yeah.
mentally.
So part of the acceptance process is accepting that there's going to be discomfort and there's going to be fear and you do it anyways. If you're winning, then and if that is your desired outcome, then I would say then it's appropriate. If you didn't think those things, maybe you'd be under aroused and you wouldn't have enough pressure. Maybe it's you building it up so that you rise to the occasion, so that you are in that fight or flight and you're not going to flee. You're going to fight, you're going to face it. But in order to do that, you amp yourself up in terms of physiological sensations. So you get your blood going, you get that epinephrine and norepinephrine spritzing out like an air freshener. Every time you think those thoughts, right? That's what gets us going. It only lasts 60 to 90 seconds. That's why I think about like the spritzing. Um, but the only issue I would say is if it feels really shitty, then it might be because there's cortisol. Cortisol lasts 60 to 90 minutes.
Okay.
So like we don't got time for that. And it can, not that you can't perform anyways, but imagine what you could do if you didn't feel like you were in quicksand.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my thought. Like if I actually felt good.
Uh-huh. So we need to go back to this is facilitative. This is helping. So my hands are sweaty. Sick. It means I'm getting ready. Oh, I just went to the bathroom 7 times. Sick. My body's getting rid of what it doesn't need. Right? Oh, I feel something in my belly. Oh, cool. That's the adrenaline spritzing. Right? Like,
Perfect.
so being able to reinterpret it, it's the appraisal process that is the issue. And usually it's the physiological sensations that get us versus just the thoughts. So sometimes we feel the physiological and our brain goes, "What is it? What is it?" And then, oh, it's because she's a big girl. You know,
Mhm.
like we're like finding reasons as to why we might be feeling this way. But in reality, our body's just getting ready to fight someone, which is an intense thing that requires explosion and tough movements and decision making and fast twitch muscles and spidey senses, right? So your body is doing the thing. But if you want to make it more enjoyable, it's just a
Yeah.
reappraisal process. Yeah. And
Okay.
also, I would say add joy. Bring your favorite snacks, bring your favorite food, listen to your favorite music, do a dance to warm up. I can't dance, but I certainly will to warm up. Right. So doing things that make you smile. Sometimes, like I've had swimmers where I've told them behind the block, smile. I don't care if it's forced. You will smile because you will tell yourself this is a good thing, even though, regardless of, despite these uncomfortable discomfort feelings, life is struggle. But if we only focus on the struggle, or if we only try to focus on the good and then the struggle keeps on creeping in, it doesn't necessarily help us. We have to be able to acknowledge it and accept it and notice it and be able to move on despite.
Thank you. Perfect.
Of course. Ryan, you were gonna ask something.
Yeah, this might be kind of going down a rabbit hole a little bit, but I'll ask anyway. The last time I competed, I was able to use a lot of the stuff that you and I had talked about in the pre-match routine, and I got into a very good headspace, and the results reflected that. Right, I wanted to win, and I won all these matches. So I guess my question is two parts. One, is this sort of stuff like a recipe, and that I can, if I do the same thing in the future, am I going to get into the same spot? And if not, how do I think about, hey, what needs to change so I can be that guy that I was before, kind of the next time I compete?
Yeah, perfect. Scientific approach. What worked,
Yeah.
what didn't. Best prompt that I like that keeps the emotions out of the play is what would I do differently and what would I do the same? But
Okay.
also, we can't get into rituals or superstitions. Routines are functional, right? They're a sequence of purposeful actions and thoughts and feelings. But if we get into, and this is what I got into the trap of, well, I went to Starbucks before I competed and I had a blueberry oatmeal. And like I was really lucky to be able to find like a Starbucks near most of the venues that I competed in and most of the countries I went to, like even in Abu Dhabi, but they wouldn't always have the blueberry. So I'd get in my head of like, well, if I didn't have the blueberries, then that means that it's just not going to go well because I didn't follow the exact same recipe.
Right.
So instead of thinking about a perfect recipe, we think about what do we have in the fridge?
Oh, okay. Okay.
What do we have in the
Okay.
fridge? What are we
Okay.
working with? And what can we do? Right? So
Yeah.
noticing what we have, accepting what we have, and working with it, with what we have. And that's why that taking inventory, you're not going to feel the same way every day,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes we go into training and we're like, ugh. Sometimes we're going into training, we're like, oh my God, I'm so excited. My favorite people are here. Sometimes we go in, you're like, oh my God, it's just the tiny people. Oh no, it's the big guys. Like everything is always, we don't have control of so many things. And it's not about like, well, you just tell you respond. No, it's what are we working with? That's what I mean by take inventory. What are we working with? What do we need? If it's because I needed fuel, there's many ways to get fuel. I could
Yeah.
freaking bring a baked potato if I needed to and gnaw on that. Because that would give me the long carbs that I needed or whatever it is. So it's really about the function of what it's doing. Other things can take its place and not staying rigid, but psychologically flexible.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So
It
really,
does.
what would I do differently and what would I do the same is a really
Yeah.
great way to look at how am I putting all this together? And you never know. You don't know. There's no way I can say this one variable is the reason you won or lost.
Right.
Right. So that's
Right.
why the flexibility allows us to say, okay, like as long as I'm aware of what I'm working with, and then I can frame it in a way that with that emotion and with those resources and with this situation, can I get to a point where I feel resilient enough, courageous enough, energized enough?
Yeah.
There's no perfect answer to that. Just like there's no perfect answer to what makes a good purple belt.
Yeah.
Right? What's the difference between a
Right.
brown belt and a blue belt? I don't know. That's why I don't have my own school. That's why I don't that's why I don't promote people because I don't want to have to answer those questions. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
It does. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. So this has been amazing. I do I do a lot of one-on-one work. I have done group things in the past where it's really, I bring a topic, I might teach a little bit, but it's mostly just everybody bringing their own experiences in because I think that's super important. I've struggled because a lot of people are in different time zones. So finding a time that everybody can get to and work with has been hard, but I plan on doing those a little bit more. But I'm going to send an email with this recording. I'll put it on YouTube. And then I will send it over. And I appreciate you guys waiting around for me because I'm perpetually late. So yeah, if you guys have any other questions, Instagram, or the email, that you guys got the information from. And then, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. I'll be
Thank
booking
you.
a session with you soon.
Thank you.